problem with the DNC and this election cycle was that the DNC tried to be everything to everybody, and they tried to have such a big tent that they were covering everybody, and you can't do that. You cannot have, you cannot solve and join far left people and Wall Street people into the same with the same goals. It just doesn't work. You can't be everything to everybody. And that's what the DNC has tried to do this last cycle, actually the last few cycles, and it just doesn't work. Uh, they really did try to be everything to everybody, and it really screwed us instead. But I have to say these are the things I think as to why we lost the election. I'm going to start with number one, and that's Biden. Biden in 2020 had promised to be a transitional president. He had said that he would be a one-term president, be transitional to a younger generation. And then when it came time, he didn't do it. He said, I'm going to run again. And of course, that didn't allow for any primary elections. So it didn't allow for other people to come to the fore and build coalitions. So, that was bad to start with. Then, of course, we had the debate with Trump and Biden, which was beyond a disaster. I mean, we all know that. That night I knew that Biden was cooked, and so did everybody else. I mean, that was the end. There was not even a question of that. What I do blame him about is it took him 2 full weeks to resign after that. 2 weeks. I mean, everybody knew what a disaster it was. We could see it, with our own eyes. And it took 2 weeks. I mean, it cost precious time for Harris to get started. And it should never have been that way. And quite frankly, Joe was being selfish at that point, and his ego was much bigger than he used to let off that he was. And of course, you have a big ego if you're going to run for president. But anyway, those were two huge mistakes. So that at the end, that only gave Harris 90 days to try to win the election. I actually think she did a pretty good job. I think her handlers and the people at the top, David Plouffe and his team, uh, screwed up in a few major ways that cost the election that maybe we could have won. And I think that one of them was, and this should have been planned, this should have been pre-planned, they should have had an answer for this ready to go. When they asked Harris what she would do differently than Biden, she broke rule Payne's, 101. Rule one is you have to differentiate yourself from your opponent, and you also have to differentiate yourself from the administration that you're from, because you're going to start a new administration, and you have to have your own ideas and be your own thinking, own individual. And when she answered that she wouldn't do anything different, that was a disaster. That showed people that she wasn't her own thinker. She had no other plans, and she would just be a second term of the Biden administration. I think that was very, very, very costly, and I think it was a huge mistake. She didn't have to bury Joe. She didn't have to go after him in a heartless way, but she certainly could have picked one or two topics that were, even on the periphery, and just said, "I would have done this differently. I would have handled this differently," and she could have done it very nicely without hurting Joe, and still defined herself as her own person, and helped define what her administration could look like. And that wasn't done. Huge, huge mistake. The other thing that I think the other major mistake, I think, was for her not to go. I mean, it's broader than this, but basically, for her not to go to Joe Rogan and go on Joe Rogan's show. Uh, they were so arrogant to say to Joe Rogan that the only way she's going to be on your show after Trump had spent 3 hours in his studio in Austin and had 70 or 80 million views. I mean, that's an incredible number of views. I mean, it's staggering. For them to give that up and that opportunity And the arrogance of saying to Joe Rogan, no, she's not going to come to your studio. She's not going to spend 3 hours with you. If you want to interview her, you can come to her and we'll maybe give you an hour. First of all, how arrogant. Second of all, how stupid. And third of all, what an opportunity missed. I mean, even if they got 20, 30, 40 million views, which probably it would have been higher, closer to Trump's, but let's just be, you know, underestimated. It still would have had a huge impact. I don't think that they trusted her enough to have a free flowing conversation for 3 hours, which is stupid because she's certainly very capable and she certainly could have held her own against Joe Rogan. Um, and I think that was a huge missed opportunity. Uh, Trump obviously really went after the bros, these young men who feel very disaffected in this world. And he went on a bunch of podcasts. Joe Rogan was the main one and convince these people that he was the guy. And I think had she gone to Joe Rogan and done that with the Bros and even a couple of other podcasts, that she could have, on the margins, peeled off enough people to make a difference. Maybe not to win. I don't know. We'll never know. But this whole election strategy of the Democrats was peeling off the margin on all the edges, all the margins of getting 2% of this group and 5% of this group and getting a little bit more here and getting a few more people to register and a few more people to show up at the polls. Well, this was a way to get to the young men and maybe peel away five. I don't know. I'm making it up. Let's say 5% of the pro crowd. Maybe she could have convinced it to turn over to her, and maybe that would have been enough to win. All I know is that was a huge, huge missed opportunity and a stupid missed opportunity. That was a self-inflicted wound that should never have happened. Um, Otherwise, I think she did a good job herself. Oh, the other thing that I think they made a mistake with is by being such a big tent, and they never criticized anything on the far left, and they didn't criticize anything about the theys and the thems and the pronouns and the trans and this and the that, and it opened up a window for Trump to go after, and he did it in a big way. As we all know, he ran those anti-trans ads, and that resonated with a lot of people. And the Democratic Party in the past has always tried to stay in the middle. That's why Hillary ran in 16 instead of Bernie, because if you remember, Bernie had big numbers, but Hillary had bigger numbers. And the party said, no, we're going to stay in the center with Hillary. We're not going to go with Bernie into the far left. And they've done that all the way through for the last 50 plus years of not giving into only the progressives and into the further far left groups. And this time they just didn't do any attacking on the far left. They didn't try to rein it in at all, and they allowed Trump to come in and define the trans issue. And he ran those ads about the bathrooms, which really is a small part. And I happen to agree, uh, you know, that I that some of these things are wrong. Some of this far left woke stuff just it's not right. We shouldn't be supporting it. And I really think that what happened was Trump. He's charismatic. He's Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to him. We all knew about his legal issues. We all know that he's a criminal and he's a crook. I mean, that's well known and well documented for the last 40 years. We know who he is. Um, but he was also a TV star, and he is charismatic, and nothing sticks to him. And every time something came up, his poll numbers went up instead of down, as we know. So I think that people looked at him and they said he's charismatic, he's a celebrity. I know who he is. And everybody ignored all the noise about the far right and Project 2025 and fascism and his legal issues. And they said, you know what? I'd rather be safe from immigrants, from those terrible immigrants, than having to share a women's bathroom with a man. And I really think that's how people thought. And that's how they landed on Trump, especially the undecideds and enough people in the middle there said, I just feel safer with Trump than I feel with this crazy stuff with a man in the women's bathroom. And that was it. And I think that we gave them that opportunity because we just left that wide open for them to come and attack. So I think that was another very big, costly mistake.